using member feedback to improve the club experience for everyone. Those of you who regularly attend our sessions may recognise my voice. I'm James, a marketing executive here at the Retention People. I'll be facilitating today's session and also introducing you to the body of the session before handing over to my colleague Tamara Bailey, who's our Professional Services Manager here at the Retention People. Many of you will also be familiar with Tamara, having attended previous webinars which she's presented through working with her in her role at TRP or at any other point in her career. Tamara's job at TRP is to help our UK customers primarily to deliver exceptional member experiences and create raving fans through the effective utilisation of our software solutions. Those of you who have attended our sessions before will know that we like to make these sessions as interactive as possible. The way we do that is through a question and answer session at the end of the webinar. And the way that you can ask questions is by typing them into the question box in your control panel on your screen. You can do that anytime during the presentation or at the end, and that won't interrupt the presenter, but it allows us to chat through those discussion points at the end of the session. As always, we just like to check that everyone can hear me okay and also see the screen. At the moment you should see a title slide with a picture of Tamara on it. If you can all see that and also hear me, then we're good to go. Just one way that we like to check to do that is to get you just to quickly send us a message that only Tamara and I can see via that question box. Just to let us know where you're tuning in from. It's just a bit of fun, really. We're both tuning in today from Bath, a lovely little city in the southwest of England. If any technical difficulties do arise during the session, please do let me know via that question box, and I'll do my best to resolve those for you. So just we'll wait just a couple of seconds just to check those responses coming through from you guys, and then we'll begin. With my introduction to why we've brought you here today. Right, so today's session is part of our end-of-year campaign, Plan for Jan, so helping you plan your member experience for the January rush. We're very conscious that there'll be a lot of emphasis from your sales teams on driving those new members in the lead up to Christmas time and after into the new year, but it's equally, if not more important, to make sure that you keep those members moving forward. We're delivering this campaign to you via a series of pieces of content, giving you advice, information, and further resources on the topic. And those are delivered via our blog posts, which are weekly for the next 2 months, through webinars such as today's. We'll be doing another at the end of November, and also through quick and easy tips, which we'll be promoting out via social media. The easiest way to stay up to date with Plan for Jan is via social media, so that's at the hashtag Plan4Jan. Everything that we do will be updated through there, so you can keep an eye on things and keep up to date. Okay, so now I'll pass you over to Tamara to discuss the topic of today's session.
Fantastic, thanks James, and thanks to everyone for joining us. So, as James has said, believe it or not, we are into the last quarter of 2016 and the New Year's is rapidly approaching. We all know that January means new members, but equally February and March can see those members leave, unfortunately, as quickly as they joined. Member experience plays a key role in keeping members engaged and attending. While we might expect motivation to be high throughout those first weeks of joining, when we analyse the trends, we see the opposite is actually true, and the highest risk of member cancellation is seen in months 1 to 3. We also know that up to 30% of members do not use their club at all in at least one of the first 3 months, and then this rapidly declines throughout the following year. So our actions early in the year can have a huge impact on whether or not we're successful and we grow during the following months. So how do we plan to make sure the same pattern isn't repeated, or can at least improve these figures in the new year? As part of the Plan for Jan campaign, as James has referred to, we've already discussed one of the many benefits of member feedback. So with our latest blog, we've been focusing on leveraging member feedback to promote your club. If you haven't had the opportunity to see this yet, you'll be able to find this on our website. But today we're going to explore how member feedback can provide a powerful tool to inform key strategic decisions, business direction, and resource allocation. Now, most of you will probably be familiar with MPS. We can see from the poll at the beginning that probably around half of you are already using some form of online MPS. But to make sure we're all on the same page, just wanted to let me to quickly recap, as this is the process we're using in this example. So Net Promoter Score, known as NPS, is a globally used measure of customer loyalty across all industries. And the way that NPS works is we'll ask one simple question. That question being, how likely are you to recommend us to a friend or someone you know? And then members will answer that question, or customers will answer that question with a number from 0 to 10. 0 being I absolutely wouldn't, 10 being definitely I would recommend you to anybody. And then based on that score, we can break them down to the 3 groups we see here. So your detractors are the people that are scoring you as between 0 and 6. Your potentially unhappy customers stuck in possibly a frustrating relationship. Your passives are your potentially satisfied customers. They're okay. There's nothing particularly wrong, but there's also not necessarily anything particularly right. So they're people that score you between a 7 or an 8. Your promoters, these are your raving fans, the people that are telling everybody how fantastic you are. These are going to be your loyal customers that actually love what you do and wouldn't move regardless of what's happening down the road. So in this example, we're looking at how we can use those people we've already, from that feedback and the scores members have given us, we've got a clear understanding of who are our promoters. So what we can do here is leverage this positively by identifying those raving fans. We already know that 83% of people have said they trust and value the reviews and opinions of people that they know, and that's what they would listen to. So we can, for example, harness our promoters to promote us through their social media streams. So already we've created a much wider sales team without any cost to us from a resource perspective. So while we know that there are ways to leverage our promoters for referrals, for positive messages, it's also really important that we pull out some information from those people who are giving us constructive feedback. So there are reasons people aren't scoring us 9s or 10s. We need to listen to these so we can make some informed strategic decisions. So I'm going to talk you through a few examples of where this has happened. So back in February, we chatted with one of our customers, Fitness Incentive in the US, to find out how they use their NPS in their club. Some of you may have attended that webinar, but in that interview, they spoke about several areas. But as a good example, they spoke about how they use NPS feedback to drive improvements in their offering for their members. So members had highlighted that during peak times, the car park would become very busy and they would struggle to find a space. Although extending the car park isn't obviously feasible, at least not in the immediate or short term, rather than feeling that they couldn't solve this issue, they realised it was so important to their members that they invested some time into creating an alternative. So they invested some time into creating a map of all the nearby car parking, its costs, its distance in minutes walk from the gym. And instead of just reporting back to the customer that there was nothing they could do, they managed that expectation. They gave that information as part of joining as upfront information to support and to help the members and allow them to plan for the time they might need to give for when they arrive to the club. So while they couldn't immediately fix the problem, they told the members that they'd acknowledged it and they'd taken some really meaningful steps to try and fix it, showing some really great creative thinking. We also had an example for a UK customer called Blackburn with Darwin. So they again had a car park that was fairly small, so they were getting a lot of feedback. And as part of their council setup, they approached the council and said that we need some parking restrictions because we know that people are using our car park because it's free and that they're heading off to do their shopping in the town. They were asked by the council to provide any evidence of this. So they looked through their detractor comments, tracked the number of comments that were coming through and what the feedback was and the impact that ultimately was having on their business. They could therefore evidence that parking restrictions were essential to allow their members to have the experience and to access their club. Off the back of this, the council agreed and they had their restrictions put in place. Some of you remember that have been following our TRP 10,000 that we looked into some of the hassles and uplifts within a club. So we asked members, what are the things that really frustrated you? And we looked at whether they were frequent, but also how frustrating they were. And based on those two measures, so how often did it happen and how much was it a problem, we found 5 key areas that were the most important in terms of impact on cancellation and frustration to the members. So first we found there was equipment. So if we know equipment is generally an area we're getting several feedback comments about, this is the time now as we come up to that new year, we know our gyms are going to be busy, that we can maybe start to plan things like getting a full service in during December. Maybe look at equipment so we have a more consistent wear. We know that there's areas of our gym, there are pieces of equipment that will have much higher usage because of their position. So by rotating that equipment, we can help prevent some of that wear and tear. We know changing facilities, this is the basics. We want the basics right in terms of cleanliness. So a busier club, as we know will happen during January as all those people come back and return, and as well as new joiners. A busier club may need more checks of these areas to keep them clean throughout the day for consistent experience. Queuing for equipment was an interesting one. Now what we found was when people that queued for equipment, it had a real impact where they said it was frustrating. This did actually only account for 7% of the total 10,000 members we surveyed. However, it was very consistent for them. They tended to be young males. But if that's your demographic, this could be a key issue for you. But we don't know that unless we're tracking the feedback. So look for this because it's something that can be a real problem. But if people have an issue with queuing for equipment, can we plan for that? Make sure we're utilising staff interaction. There is no reason members should be queuing for equipment. We should always have an alternative. Consider programming. So are we providing similar programs so people are following pretty much the same routine? They're all warming up on the bike, moving on to the elliptical, for example. Can we program a little bit better to make sure that we're utilising the whole of the club? We talked a little bit about parking already. So we've given some good examples above. We meant to be able to solve the problem, but you can definitely manage the expectation. And then fitness staff start talking to you. This lack of conversation. This is going to be always going to be a challenge, but in the busier early months of membership or the busier early months of the year particularly, we need to make sure we can plan early so we can ensure sufficient, not just gym floor coverage, but throughout the club. How can we manage member onboarding? So we look at how we plan onboarding if we're booking appointments for members for their onboarding, their induction, their orientation, however we might refer to that. Are we making wise decisions about where we book those in and the time that we take? If I spend 1 hour with one single member during peak hours of my club, that leaves all of my other members to fend for themselves. So in terms of consistent service and the level of service we require, we maybe need to think differently about how we manage those appointments. Can we direct people into quieter times? Can we shorten those and really just focus on the key things that they need without losing the feeling that we value them? And coming back to kind of examples, Active Newham, a club here in the UK, a chain of clubs, and they listened to their member feedback, and queuing was something that they found that came back fairly consistently, particularly around the reception area. So they made quite significant strategic decisions based on the impact that they saw queuing had as being one of the most likely reasons that people were detractors, and ultimately the most likely reason people were cancelling. So they took this strategic decision to go completely cashless. So they use kiosks rather than having queues at reception. They allow people to manage their access using kiosks and turnstiles and easy access. Now note, we aren't stating that these are necessarily the the preferred, the advised strategy for all businesses, just that you need to understand the right strategy for your business. And without that evidence and feedback, you're just guessing what the right strategy might be. So how do we get ready for January's new members? So it's all going to start with your existing members. We need to listen to them now. They're the people with the experience. They're the people with knowledge, what's working well, and maybe what are the frustrations. Listen to what they have to say and work to tweak and improve your offering over the next couple of months to ensure that you give the new year's new members the best possible start to your club. I want to reiterate it's really important you value listening to all of your members. Our regulars' feedback is really valuable and really important, but they will give you a one-sided view. We need to really understand why the members that aren't attending. We need to get feedback from those people that are less engaged with our club to really find out why. It's also important to make sure you listen and learn how to improve the experience for new members, but also how to prevent poor experience for our loyal members during the mad January rush. We know how this is. We've had our loyal members who've been with us for months, if not years, and then suddenly in January and February, they can't get a space in the car park. They don't have a free locker. They can't get a space in the equipment. They can't book into their own class. Let's listen to the people that have been our loyal and existing members and find out how can we create a great experience for new people, but also make sure we're not forgetting those that have been with us. Now we have focused around how we prepare for the new year, how we make sure we're harnessing all of the information we have from our members. Let's consider them our mystery visitors, if you like. They have huge amounts of information on their experience, where it's good, bad, or otherwise, where we can improve and where we can do more of great things. But it's really important this continues to be an ongoing process. So we need to ask the questions and ask simple questions. Would you recommend us? How are we doing? Specific questions have a point in time that they're relevant, but if we start there, we don't get the overall experience. So allow them to tell you what's important to them. And then we analyse that feedback. What are the themes that are coming through? What are the things that stand out? As another example, one of our chains of customers in the UK used MPS to make strategic decisions about where their budget was spent. They had an allocated budget that they felt needed to go into one area, but when they started to analyse their feedback from MPS, they realised that actually their priorities weren't necessarily the customer's priorities. So they changed where that money was spent to act on what was best in the best interest of the customer. We can also use this sort of analysis to look at different areas of our business. Another UK chain that we've worked with tasked their maintenance team with improving their specific MPS score. So if much of the feedback coming back was about broken equipment, maintenance issues around the building, then the maintenance team now had to make their decisions of where their priorities were, firstly from a health and safety perspective, but then very closely followed up by what the members needed. And that was measured by improving their score. So we have to act. If we're going to ask the questions, we take on board the feedback, we analyse what's important, what's priorities, and then we have to act. And then we ask again. So hopefully there's some ideas to get you thinking about your preparation for your busy New Year period. But some key takeaways to think about. Firstly, use this time to gather member feedback in advance. Track those key themes. Find out what you really need to focus on when you've got such a busy time ahead. And let's prepare for it. Ensure you generate feedback from a wide range of members. So our regulars have lots of information. They're really engaged with us. They attend our clubs a lot. But they'll have a one-sided view. We need to find out those people who are struggling to have regular attendance, or those reasons they don't come in, what they are and how we can improve that. we need to importantly act now, so create your plan for January. And what does that look like throughout all departments? It isn't just about what happens on the gym floor. How does the rest of the team and the rest of our club manage the needs and the priorities for the members? And continue that feedback process throughout the year. So we're continuing to act on it, sharing that we've acted on it and how we've acted on it, and then asking them for more feedback. The more that we can demonstrate that it's important to us, we're acting on it, and we're making decisions based on it, the more feedback we can then ultimately start to generate. So as James said, we'd love to open the floor to any questions you had. Hopefully this has started to get you thinking about some challenges you might have, some ways you might want to plan for the new year. So there is, as James mentioned, there is a question box, so please do feel free to add your questions for us. Is there anything that's come through, James?
No, there isn't as yet. I guess if you want to just put your contact details up as well now, just in case there's any questions. Obviously, if any questions come up after the session, we'd love to answer them now. We've got time to talk through and discuss in detail now. But if anyone would like to ask a question, then I'm sure Tamara will be more than happy to pick that up with you outside the session. I guess just as an interesting discussion point would be the poll that I think quite a lot of you took part in at the start of the session. So you can see here quite a mix of the way that people currently collect member feedback. One with the largest majority is directly talking to members, and there's still a few people using those online traditional long form surveys. So I just think kind of one of the learnings from today's session would be that it's all well and good to collect that feedback, but that loop, that flow, is not complete unless you're acting on that. And a system like MPS allows you to do that in a manageable, sort of effective way. Question come in now. So whilst I just read through that. So there's a question here from Adam, and Adam's asking, Tam, what have you seen successfully to get a member back into that club after not coming for sort of 8 weeks or more?
The challenge with that is it's very, very difficult if a member has not been engaged with the club for that period of time. Getting them in is actually a real challenge. So I probably haven't got a great deal to share in terms of great examples of that. What I would say instead to that question is that this is why it's really important that we need to prevent people dropping out. So actually the more engagement we can have with, whether it's in-club, so in-club interactions, so can we identify those people that maybe don't have a pattern of exercise? Can we pick up early those people that aren't coming twice a week? Now we know the health benefits that they should be 3, 4, 5 times a week, but actually in terms of a retention perspective, then twice a week is really that the threshold that makes the difference. So have we got processes in place that make sure we can encourage people to attend, commit to twice a week, and then we can pick up if they don't, and much earlier than 8 weeks, because if that's where our communication starts, turning them around is almost an impossible task. So again, that kind of quick question about feedback, we can, again, why MPS is very powerful, because we can ask that very early on at several points to that, and we can find out if there are reasons that they might not be coming back. So I'm not sure if that answered the question, but I think ultimately it is a very, very challenging thing to get people back once after the 8-week point. In fact, we'd often say that if people haven't been attending for over 28 days, we would tend to discourage too much contact because it tends to cause a cancellation rather than a re-engagement with the club.
Okay. We don't have any more questions at the moment, but as I said, we do have allocated time, so if anyone does have a question, we'll just give you a couple more minutes just to get those in, and just a reminder there of Tam's details should you wish to pick something up with us after today's session. As I showed in the introduction, Plan for Jan continues till the end of November, so with similar resources, easily digestible blog posts, social media tips, and another webinar at the end of November. So keep up to date with us on social media. So that's at TRP News on Twitter, the Retention People on Facebook, and you'll keep up to date with everything via those channels. So I think it looks like we are done for questions today. Thank you again, everyone, for joining us. Thank you to Tamara for presenting today's session, and we'll speak to you all soon. Thank you.